what it is, my people, my poetry-loving peoples. I just had to start this whole video again because this ferocious animal in my hands here was going to town on his reindeer slash donut hybrid toy and just viciously destroying it through my entire video. And I tried to just roll with it and make it work, but it weren't working. So here we go. Take two. We're gonna try this again. I got this little critter with me. He's a ferocious hunter, which works for this piece because it's for my dad, who's a hunter. So hopefully that'll translate. But yeah, this is day 36. How about them poetry tricks? That's crazy. Pick up them poetry sticks. 36. Woo! Gonna give you your fix. So many great words that rhyme with other words. Love words. Wish I spoke other languages. That shit is hard, but someday. Still doing my Duolingo. That owl gets mad at me all the time, but I'm trying. I'm sorry, owl. I get so upset when you're mad at me. Anyway, I am here in my den, which is a lovely room for visuals, but it is also freezing cold right now. That's why I'm actually glad Gizmo wanted to be with me, because I'm just shaking in my fringed boots. This room is very cool the way it's designed. I will film in here many times because, much like my bedroom, every little corner of it is a completely new look, new experience, many colors, many vibrations going on all at once. I am now this guy's chew toy, in case you didn't notice. That's what's happening. But anything to keep him more controlled than he was in my last take, because that shit was buck wild. Speaking of buck, though, I'm wearing a very special shirt for this poem, and it is actually made 100% of buckskin. It's a little big on me in the shoulders, but still effective and extremely nice to wear. Like, I'm feeling like buckskin is the thing. Like, wow, I feel much more comfortable in my skin. Like, I feel very powerful. That's how I'm gonna describe it. Feels good. But this was actually the shirt that my father married my mother in. They both were wearing buckskin, given to them in a very ceremonial, traditional way that was very special to them. And so yeah, I felt like I wanted to wear this. My dad hopefully will feel very honored and very loved, because he's going to get 2 poems this week. What a lucky guy, right? His birthday is coming up in a few days, and I'm going to do a poem for him on his birthday. And but I'm doing this one today because he just had his eye surgery, and so it went well, but he's got a pretty long road to recovery ahead. 2 solid weeks of laying flat on this weird, like, massagey propped up pillow thing, and no looking at screens, and just total rest. So he won't be able to watch this video or the birthday tribute one, but he'll be able to hear them and watch them in a few weeks. So yeah, I'm really sending the love for him, and I felt so bad for him this week, and I'm really not trying to call out, like, gender division here or anything, but I do feel bad for guys because, you know, there's a lot of times I feel like maybe it would be easier to be a guy, but then I'm glad to be a woman because I'm such a feeler, and I feel like men are sort of trained or instructed in this very suffocating way to store their emotions away and not feel things. And I don't know, I've been kind of glad in my life that I don't have that expectation to, like, dribble the ball, pick up the huge thing of metal, haul that thing up a mountain, get your hands dirty, get in there, and, like, not feel at the same time. I don't know, it just seems way complicated. I know the world is expanding and we're making room for all kinds of gender barrier destructing, ideals, which is great. But, the era my dad grew up in, it was certainly, like, what are you crying about? Get it together. So, yeah, that would have been hard because my dad is a feeler. I don't want to call him, I'm calling him out a little bit here, but, you know, this guy, he never does this. He never, like, coughs. He's just trying to steal the show. But yeah, my dad cries every time he watches Forrest Gump. Sorry, Dad, gotta call you out. And you know, everybody's seen the movie Soul now. I'm gonna have to convince my dad to watch it after his eye heals and he's all better. But that part reminded me so much of my dad, and he instilled this in me, that total deep appreciation of nature. Like when he's sitting and 22 is in the guy's body, and the little fan, the little like they look like little spinners, the little leaf comes down and lands in his hand, and he like knows the meaning of what it is to be human, and just waterworks. And that super reminded me of my dad. Got a very special relationship. He actually lives up in Wyoming now. My parents are separated, but I don't get to see him very often. Because of the pandemic especially, but you know, it's scary. I worry about him because I don't know if you know this about Wyoming. My dad is a very scientific person, and he follows the science and the logic. Most of the people around him where he is, though, not so much. Not really going along with that. So I worry about him. But he has always been a fierce advocate of nature, and went to school for botany, and plants are like people to him, which you'll see in the poem. There's another part of the poem. Now I'm like doubly disappointed in myself because I even mentioned it in my first take of the video, and instead of getting up and getting the thing, which I forgot, I wanted to keep Gizmo on my lap for warmth. But I describe something about the way my dad looked as a young boy, and I forgot the picture prop to go along with it, so I'm just going to have to show it as show and tell for his birthday poem. But yeah, anyway, we had some difficult conversations this week leading up to his surgery, because I think it's hard for him as a man, and a man who's expected to be strong, and I don't know, even though he's been allowed to like work past that in certain ways, it's kind of like deeply ingrained that you shouldn't show what you're feeling, and so it just all kind of bottles up. And I understand he's very afraid and doesn't know where to put those like feelings of fear and uneasiness. So we had some toughies, but I just hope that this love is soothing and meaningful for him, because he has had a huge impact on my life and took me hiking everywhere and taught me that, you know, the nature around me was not an inanimate object. It was my kin, you know, it was my family, like it's living, breathing, it's an entity. He also gave me the excellent advice, which I repeat often to anyone who will hear it, which is all things in moderation, including moderation. I like that one. It's a good one. But yeah, it's a kind of a long poem, so I guess I won't do too much backstory, just because it's written on whiteboards all around the room, and then I did the final piece of it on a piece of paper because my hand was getting tired, and again, I'm still not feeling real well at all. Went out today to get a bunch of hippy-dippy pills for my body to try to cleanse whatever bric-a-braca is going on, and gosh, it's hard out there in the world of people. But yeah, the world of plants and animals was the one my dad always tried to get me to embrace, and I was very much like, from the time I was 2 years old, like, I'm a city girl. I want to be famous. I want to be in Hollywood. Screw this, Dad. Oh, I'm tired. Put me on your shoulders. And like, I was so much of a Powerpuff Girl before they even existed, and only now in my like later 20s and 30s am I just so grateful that he gave me that piece of myself that sort of I don't know, hid under a layer of glossiness until I actually lived in Hollywood. And then when I came back to Colorado, I was quite literally on the ground kissing the dirt because it was like, wow, nature, you're my girl. Like, yeah, the restrictive neon sunsets sucking up all the air in LA are not quite what I thought they were going to be. And I really grew to appreciate what it means, the absolute freedom to have the headspace to trek into the Rocky Mountains and feel alive and nourished by the air and the elements. But I decided to pose in front of this. It was one of my dad's favorite pieces in our home. I got the backstory from my mom tonight, and apparently he was being kind of a jerk when she was trying to buy these antiques. And my mom is very psychic and very, feely, touchy, feels the feels. And she was having this psychic pull that there was something up in the like attic area of this antique store in Bozeman, Montana, that was like calling to her. And my dad was like, "What are we still doing here? Can't we get going?" And I can totally see him doing that. I love him so much. He's a sensitive, tender, loving, wonderful, just poetic and beautiful dude. But when he gets impatient, boy, does he ever get impatient. So apparently he was like, "Come on, Kate, let's get going." And she was like, "Damn it, Dominic, I'm feeling a psychic pull right now. Leave me alone." So she went up and she found this, and it's an indigenous man who's hunting, and he's reaching for a lotus flower, which I feel is very profound and beautiful, and he's in kind of a lagoon. And so my dad is a hunter, and he always, from the time he was a boy, had that kind of sense that the soul of the animal is sacred, and also that you must use every piece of the animal and give it your thanks, pray to it. And he always had that feeling, and it kind of was just like in his soul, and he didn't know where from, because he grew up in a very, very, very strict Catholic environment. So it was just kind of an intrinsic feeling about the spiritual nature of the animal world and the hunt. And then when he came to be lucky enough to cross paths with many indigenous men and women, he learned the truth of that instinct. So I think that's pretty special, and there's a lot of that kind of artwork in this room. I think he was really grateful that my mom's business led to this lifestyle of being at powwows all the time, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. So yeah, it led to a lot of good things, including, like me existing and whatnot. So I'm very happy that path came to be. And I was thinking, putting on this shirt this evening, like, there's certainly like strange, heavy, interesting feelings between my mother and father, but I was thinking about how something doesn't have to tell the same story that it once told to hold the same kind of power and meaning. Like, it doesn't have to stick to the same script or strictly mean what it meant before. It can still hold this magic and this divinity without having to force it into the box of the past that it came from, if that makes sense. So anyway, it's meaningful in a lot of different ways to me to be wearing this. And yeah, basically I just want my old pa to feel the love this week. So hopefully he does. And I'll give a tiny little backstory on just the condition that my dad had in his eye when he was a child. So now he had the partial retinal detachment, and that was a new development in his good eye. But his other eye, when he was a young child, wandered really badly, and it wasn't a lazy eye. It was like a different thing where it like moved around a lot. And so I mentioned that the name of that diagnosis in the title of the poem. And so yeah, I think that's all the backstory you need, so I'll get into it because it's a little bit of a longie. But thank you for joining me on day 36. Holy cow, what a cool journey. I'm proud. You know, I don't have a bazilli followers, but or subscribers or whatever, but I'm doing something that's deeply meaningful, and I hope that you are finding small or great treasures in it. So this one's for you, Pa. Mr. Pierre. So this poem is called Rejecting Norms, Nature's Form, Hope, and Amblyopia. As a boy, he looked just like Ralphie in A Christmas Story. Hunting rabbits and squirrels was his glory and his vigor. Catholic school torture was his trigger. The knuckle slapping is not just in cautionary tales. Those nuns failed him when they put a troublemaker target on his back. Through his thick tortoiseshell glasses, he developed a knack for seeing people as they truly were. The world they presented to him as unquestionable truth was a blur, a spoof of what he knew was sacred. He sought proof in the woods of Wisconsin. With 4 brothers and a sister, how do you stand out or get a word in? His strained vision was not his only form of sight. Adults wagged their heavy fingers and told him definitively what was wrong and what was right. Every time the priests bellowed their condemnation, his chest felt tight and his stomach flipped. He ripped away from it all subtly, the only way a young boy could, by retreating to those holy woods, where he knew the true forces of the universe came to life. Not in those stifling little bow ties, kneeling on hard prayer benches, but with the fox hollows, following the secret owl perches, amidst the songs of the finches and whippoorwills. He seeks their non-judgmental sermons still. I imagine what he saw with his one drifting eye and his prying mind, trudging through snow past the boundaries of the strict reality, off to see what an open heart could find. All the other Boy Scouts wanted to fight, and my father complied even though his demeanor was always sweet and kind. He rose to the scuffles for survival, but upon arrival in the mighty tree amphitheater, he found a better version of himself, a wealth of knowledge in each fallen pine, each creeping vine, the soothing passage of time amongst his true kindreds, the curious critters rewriting those stricture lines, and turning his mind to poetry and the worship of flora, fauna, soul, luna. Tuning his inner radio to a station that finally made sense. The closer he got to the white fences and hovering rules, his whole being became tense. The surgeries performed on his eye would make his growing years weary. Planning escape already, collecting his dollars and cents. No one to vent to but the creatures beyond nature's curtain. He knew with great certainty that there was more out there, beyond the uptight boundary that confined him. One escape with his wool coat and 22 in tow would remind him. He saw a world of beings whose names he'd quickly learned. He yearned for the new nature souls waiting as the seasons turned. Artemisia Ludoviciano, he'd bestow a daughter in the future with these woodland companions out in the outskirts. He'd come to love and know. He didn't let his eye diagnosis bring him low, though he was bullied and singled out, as are all who let any weakness show. His meandering eye was called Amblyopia. He struggled to see in his peripheral vision the coming paths and slopes, and even his beloved stars like Orion and Cassiopeia. But he never relinquished hope or roped in his adventurous side. The towering trees were the ones he confided in. As the years passed, his sight continued to have an effect, despite him directing all his energy to pushing past the limitation. Everyone clamored for the new 3D movies, but he could not take part in such modern initiation. So it was back to the earthen world of sparrow, swallow, and buck visitations. Let them have their colored glasses celebration. He had a much more special invitation. He hunted with great spiritual appreciation for the lives given to the great beyond. With each animal he used for sustenance, there was a prayer, a gratitude, a bond. He would later come to know he was practicing indigenous ceremony when he came to spend time with them and their hunting songs. Life moved swift, and it didn't take long before he had a daughter to pass his wisdom along to. He named her for his favorite fowl, the teal duck, and stood with her as she was blessed in the Rio Grande River to have reverence for the Earth Mother and hold strength of the bear, freedom of the wise ones who flew through the air, and the crafty beaver's luck. Years later, a great challenge of raising a child would come in the form of a fairy wand accidentally stuck into his weak eye. Surprise! A trip to the ER from camping in New Mexico. Such a sudden, disastrous blow. His little girl didn't know he was standing up right as she was performing her conjuring spell. She put him through hell that day. They had to spray his eye with cocaine. Yep, that's how they do it. Watching him go through it would leave his daughter with years of guilt. But this is all part of life's intricate quilt. Each patch has a story attached, the things we see and feel and survive and latch on to. He'd carry his precious girl on his shoulders through so many landscapes of Seneca hillsides and skies dappled purple and blue. His child didn't like hiking as much as he did, but he didn't mind carrying her through. Together they would view such epic expanses and were lucky enough to experience native gifts of soul-lifting hoop dances. He saw the world as he had always dreamed. His wife opened the scenes to reveal a people with as much honor for their plant and animal brethren as he. His sight now soaked up vistas and wildflower plains beyond belief. His eyes even beheld an eagle feather gifted with such spiritual intention from an actual chief. He found little relief from his disliking of the other world, the racing, competing, greedy modern swirl. He still took off into the hills often to see the true beauty unfurled. Still, it hurts his feelings not to be able to see those 3D movies with his little girl. Now, not so little. But he got to show her an even more vibrant sight when he showed her all the plants he'd met. And as he named them all, it was like a wondrous riddle. She asked him, "Dad, how on earth do you remember all of this?" He responded, "Easy. They're my friends." With a look on his face that could only be called bliss. These magic words were truly a gift to his daughter, whether he knew it or not. It stirred in her a love of words and untangled her own stress knots. He ventures now into the Buckhorn Mountains, the Crazy Woman Canyon, the sprawling vastness of Wyoming, where he finds new stages of nature to stand on. He reports back to his daughter of eagles' nests, great moose encounters, a bat who came to say hello at the same spot on the same trail many times, new birds on his life list, new paths, new intimidating inclines. He tells her of all the earth's treasures he finds. The limits on his vision have never limited his ability to see or his mind's eye. His eye's mind is actually what I wrote. I flipped the saying. The limits on his vision have never limited his ability to see or his eye's mind. He described to me his current predicament as I know his fear receptors were on overdrive, firing. As per this current retinal partial detachment, he explained it, it's not the camera, it's not the lenses, it's the wiring. A scary downside to aging, to be sure. Now as he heals from another procedure, I think of all the time he's spent appreciating every internal snapshot. I'll bet there's not one bird friend he ever forgot. One sagebrush he didn't stop to give thanks to. I pray to all those woodland angels to protect his searching, seeking, soul-steeping view. I put out healing energies to protect his love of beholding this green-blue mother we owe everything to. So that's the poem from my pops, from my paw, hey. He likes to use hey a lot from his Wisconsin days. Teal, hey, what are you doing, hey? What's over there, hey? Give me a break, hey. It's like his thing. Anyway, I love him dearly, and I hope that that poem gives him a little boost, because I cannot imagine that it is easy to just sit around for 2 solid weeks with no screen time and no movement, no looking outside, just heal. So I hope this is a nice little soothing balm on all of those scary feelings. The surgeon said that the retina reattached and that it worked the way it was supposed to work. So now just comes the healing part, which is apparently the hardest part. That's what they say. The only, or the majority of these surgeries that are not successful are because people didn't follow the instructions and heal right. So I'm going to stay on him about that. But yeah, I hope this soothes him a little, and I hope you found some beauty in it too. And I'm going to be back again to do it again for day 37, which is a super profound number. We'll get into that tomorrow. So thanks for being with me. Thanks for deep diving on some poetry. And I'm going to go cuddle with this little goober face who just loves to be a part of the show. So thank you very much for being with me, and we'll see you again next time. Good night.